headphones usually because I'm always wearing headphones when I'm streaming. So
Is the exact advice I was going to give.
You guys really know your stuff about audio. Yeah.
I mean, I had issues at the beginning of this stream, so not always.
Well, I'm new to this stuff. So I want to restart this.
I mean,
I'm trying to remember what I said earlier.
if you're not getting audio levels in OBS, like what? Now they can hear us.
Oh,
Hello?
I'll mute for a bit. I'll mute for a bit. See if it's working. Yeah, it's like we're very far away.
I have to echo.
Chat's calling out for you, Mark. They want you to fix it for some reason.
Calling out to me?
Yeah, is it? You can fix.
What did I do?
I don't know.
Is it because I'm a cyborg?
Probably interface with his OBS or something.
I mean, I'm not like. I'm not a mentat. Jojo.
if your computer audio is on your mixer and you can see input on it, and you've
Right.
cranked it all the way up in terms of input volume, you can add a filter to that device in the Streamlabs mixer where you can amplify the gain artificially. If you need to boost it and there's no other way.
Exact advice I was going to give.
And whatever you're doing, just keep at it, I guess, because I just listened to the stream. Yeah, we're good.
I mean, I had issues.
Okay, if we're good, that's yeah. Are we restarting the stream or anything? Since I mean, it started with like what 15 minutes of just silence.
Hey, Remembrance Day poppies went on yesterday. That was for the troops, everybody.
Well, hopefully you got the active conversation when you re-upload it or something, you know. I'll mute for a bit. I'll mute for a bit, see if it's working.
Wait,
Wow.
Mechnic? Grump, I'm not a Mechnic. Yeah, it's the acolyte version
Yeah,
of the
it's like we're very far away. No one is a mech.
It might just be Star Wars. I just started
Galaxy,
overhearing that
okay?
term.
They invented that fucking chat's calling out for you, Mark. They want you to Everyone calls it mechanic for some reason.
I mean, I don't ever remember reading the word.
Is it? You can fix.
What did I do?
I don't know.
Or no? I don't ever remember reading the word Mechnic in a single Star Wars
Probably.
book I've ever read.
No, they just made it up for that specifically.
Yeah.
Definitely.
They wanted to make it sound Star Warsy, but end up using, sounding even dumber than. Well, to be fair, that is Disney in general, but yeah.
Yes, the D&D approach to sci-fi writing. You can have YouTube open. You just got to mute the YouTube. Like in the browser, just hit the little thing. Like that. That's how we get chat up, really.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's so many, right? I mean, it's like asking a movie buff what their favorite film is. It's just like, fuck, I don't know, dude, like a lot. But like with characters, I mean, I think what I like in characters, and I think most people like in characters, like heroes, is some capacity for their capacity for sacrifice and nobility. Without getting into like religious territory, I mean, the ultimate representation of this is Jesus, right? or like Christ-like figures across religions, where it's
What
just
do you say that? I was gonna say that.
right. Yeah, I mean that is like the pinnacle of like um uh, characters that you look up to as an ideal, and then under that you have like demigods, which plays itself out in the form of superheroes in modern culture across comic books, movies, whatever. And I like one of the ones I started off was Spider-Man as well. Like that was one of the first comics that I started reading. I watched the animated series, and then I got into Batman. Um, Link from Zelda was a big one for me because like playing Ocarina of Time and just that story of like being a kid being raised in a place where he doesn't belong and realizing like he has a greater calling, and then do it picking up the initial 3 gems, and then he goes back to Hyrule 7 years later, and the whole place is just fucking wrecked. And just, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I can swear on your show. I'll try not to.
We've crossed the line. Fuck, shit, balls, cock.
I should have asked
Shit.
before.
Shit.
But... All right, fair enough. But in Ocarina of Time, that moment in the game of traveling forward in time, you realized Ganondorf tricked you and locked you away, and now you're back in Hyrule, and everything's gone to shit, and there's just monsters everywhere, and it actually feels genuinely creepy and like horrific when you first come out into Hyrule Market. That's like burned into my brain. Just and then
Yeah, those zombie things are fucking terrifying.
yeah. And then just that whole ensuing adventure of trying to set the world right and fighting no matter how bad things get around you, that willingness to fight and not giving up. Like Doom Guy is another favorite of mine. Of like where it's just, demons have just fucking overrun everything to the point where the world has transformed. It almost seems completely hopeless for humanity going forward, but Doom Guy will fucking shoot them all in the face anyway. Like it's
Yeah,
just
Killed his bunny.
yeah, right. It's just so like it's great. And but I mean I'm just talking about heroes here. Obviously you have like the other side of this coin is villains, but I don't think you appreciate a villain in isolation. It's always in contrast with like a hero that they're fighting. And there's certain villains that you really appreciate because they provoke your hero in such a way where they're put under extreme pressure and behave in ways that you might not expect. Um, mhm. Yeah, well, I think
That is
villains are engineered to maximally exploit the heroes. Like with in the case of Spider-Man, like I've always really liked Venom as a character and what the symbiote does to him, because it's like Spider-Man. I mean, he lives with this trauma of his uncle having died, and it's his fault, and he does this job for New York saving people, and it's a thankless job, and he feels constantly shit on and under pressure. J. Jonah Jameson's always shitting on him in the paper, and it's like, why am I even doing this, man? And it's just like she's answering a greater call where it's just like people need help out there, and am in a position to do it. And then you have the Venom symbiote, which takes advantage of some of the resentment that he feels for his thankless job, I think, right? And it turns him into an actual monster of sorts, you know? And then, eventually that symbiote detaches and it attaches itself to Eddie Brock, who the nature of that character, can change depending on the medium. Like in the cartoon, for example, he was more of a resentful co-employee at the Daily Bugle, and he was just bitter that he wasn't as appreciated as the others, and then so the symbiote sort of takes advantage of somebody's negative emotion and then bulks up, and then the nature of the symbiote, another element of it is that it doesn't set off Spider-Man's spider sense, so he can't tell when he's like sneaking up on him.
I was at the tail end of it, actually.
Oh, cool.
I'll explain that afterwards if you want, but go ahead.
Ezekiel.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's akin to fighting blind to an extent. Like, I mean, if you're used to effectively being able to see all around you 360 degrees, which a spider sense effectively is, right? Like, it's like you can see a punch coming even if it's coming at the back of your head.
Yeah.
Is it see or feel? More feel, right? Because he knows his spider sense kind of warns him there's something coming.
It's feel, but what I mean is for our perception of us being in a fight, it's effectively see. Right, like so for us,
because
losing our spider sense would only be
his spider sense, right? If I'm thinking this correctly, the way it works, you can kind of trick it into thinking there's something coming, but you're kind of fooling him.
Well, maybe, but you can also do something in a fight like flash a hand up in front of someone's face, thinking you're gonna like slap them with a big open palm and then punch them in the stomach really hard. Like our eyes can be tricked too. The reason I was saying see was because like for us being in a fight, our primary sense that we're using in a fight is vision. Like sound matters. You could maybe argue smell if you're fighting a guy who doesn't smell particularly great. But ultimately, you need to be able to see to know what you're doing in a fight until it gets to the ground, and then you can do it all by feel. But I think Spider-Man losing his spider sense would be akin to us fighting with a blindfold on. Like it's just like, oh wait, hold on.
Basically, yeah. If he's so used to it, yeah, I do get the point there. If he's so used to it, he's relied on it so much, and you just take it away, he's gonna stumble. Yeah, that's true. That is indeed the case. And just to get back on the point with John's good foil for villains. For me, it's the opposite, to be honest. I don't know. Call me weird, but for me, I really find most hero characters, okay, there are very nuanced or well-written hero characters, but a lot of hero characters are just, doing hero stuff. They're kind of boring. That's where I gravitated towards the villains more because they are the fascinating bits in the story because a hero is going to do hero things, right? Because they were wrong, they want to do the right thing, stuff like that. They're courageous and I'm not demeaning it or anything, but for me personally, I really do find a good villain to balance out a hero that's basically doing hero stuff. If you give someone who's a good villain, it's gonna test that hero's resolve every goddamn time he appears. That would be much more interesting to me. It's kind of, I guess it's kind of the same idea, but opposite in terms of where I am much more interested in, if you catch my drift there. And sorry.
No, I totally get what you're saying, man. Yeah, I mean, I hugely appreciate villains. I didn't mean to make it sound like I think of them as significantly lesser than heroes. I think it's in terms of interest, I hold them in equal regard. But I think like if you're just looking up to villains alone, then it's just like, there's it's just lacking in morality. and it's like I just feel like they need to coexist with a hero to sort of be. I mean, I guess you can respect them on some level, if they're intelligent or something like Doctor Doom, but they do such terrible things with their intelligence, and it's just like, oh my, if you had only gone another way, like think of the good you could have done with your skills and your knowledge.
A lot of heroes though nowadays are presented as heroes, but they actually do very villainous actions as well.
Yeah.
So you've got, I don't know, first example that comes to mind,
I think
maybe
it's
Rose
more of the
Tico.
character not knowing what heroes are, or they're really trying hard to subvert the idea of heroes because they want to, it's more of a question of what will make this character interesting. I don't know, make them gray or something, but in actuality, their execution is right. So I think that's more of a talent thing. But yeah.
Did you guys see the image I shared on Discord there?
Let me check.
So this was, I think, from yesterday. It was on Twitter. There was just this random kind of engagement farm post that said, "Are all paladins lawful good by nature? Why or why not?" And I didn't really have a great answer for it because I'm like, I don't know, maybe, but like they're individuals too, so they might end up
by
being nefarious. But this person responded and said, "Lawful, yes, but good is a matter of perspective." And then my reply is just, "Found the evil one." It's like, no. Good is not necessarily a matter of perspective, especially in the context of like battle and war and paladins, and like it's like, well, and there's probably some good guys and bad guys involved here. Like if you're a dark wizard trying to open a portal to hell to overrun the world with demons, I don't think you could be like, yeah, but it's a matter of perspective. I'm actually one of the good guys if you think about it. It's like, well, no, you're not.
Yeah, I've had similar exchanges with people who treat good and evil as simply labels. And it's just like, fuck, you do not want to live in a world that descends into moral relativism where you can just like say something's good or bad depending on a certain, I don't know, whatever. Like, yeah, it's like if it's all a matter of perspective, then you can, wherever you are in the world and whatever culture, you can potentially justify anything, no matter how objectively cruel it is, because you could justify it in a way where it's just like, well, it made me happy, so it's good. Like that's so fucking stupid.
They're throwing gay people off roofs. I guess it's their culture. It's
what
a good
if that
thing.
hard drive full of CP made that man truly happy?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's like the bicycle meme.
Yeah.
Bicycle meme. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird when people try to justify it. I think that's why there's a lot of weird protagonist characters, because a lot of writers have that idea. They're pushing for that belief system. It's all a matter of perspective, but it's not really though. The words good and evil exist for a reason. There's a clear definition to it, right?
Yeah.
Basically, good is what benefits us as a whole, and evil is what damages us as a whole. So there's no real gray line to it. It's just that they're trying to, because they're trying to justify their actions, like canceling people and being also, what's the word I would go for? Having this double standard when it comes to choosing people they're supporting, or belief systems they will go, or actions they will choose in order to protect their belief system. It's just one massive cope for people who have that idea.
I mean, the prime recent example I think would be I can't remember their actual name, Smilo Ren.
Kimir.
Yeah.
No, Smilo Ren's perfect. Also, I think 42 minutes into this stream right now, I just figured out that my mic wasn't going through. Everyone could hear everyone but me. But sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, that actually happened to Mauler on an EFAP once. We had to totally re-record it.
No, we ain't we're running. Let's go. Sorry, True Pop Culture. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I finally think I got it sorted out.
A little tip for the future on Streamlabs: check your inputs on both your microphone and your desktop audio, and make sure you're getting levels, that they're going into the yellow or the red or whatever.
I set everything up yesterday and everything was working. and I got all the links together. I got the thumbnail, but everything. The chat didn't look how it looks now. Like everything set up. And then I went to bed and I woke up this morning and Streamlabs is like, "Oh, all that work you did yesterday? Fuck you. I'm not saving any of that." So,
Yeah,
but
that can be quite a bitch.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. That's unfortunate.
yeah, it is what it do. You were talking
Thank
about
you for
It
the
could be like it is, but it do.
by the way.
yeah.
Regarding the sort of moral ambiguity in media, I think a large factor of that is that we have been in. Oh my God, we're one down.
Perfect.
I think we are.
TruePop.
Hopefully, he'll come back.
Yeah.
I think we are. We have been in an era of anti-heroes for quite a while in media, especially since, like, I think a big kicking off point was the Sopranos being on HBO. You know, where you had a
Yeah.
character like Tony Soprano, where all of a
Real
sudden,
anti-hero there too, not just a hero who does some like violent shit every now and then. Like Tony
right?
Soprano is legitimately a bad guy, but you kind of root for him a little.
Yeah, and when the Sopranos first came out, I think the studio executives were a bit nervous about it. Like, do we want the audience to root for this guy? Are they going to root for this guy? Like, are they going to tune in every week to see this guy doing cruel stuff to people? But the show ended up being quite a mature exploration of the psyche of somebody who's in that kind of position, who is the head of a mob, the Jersey mob, basically. Um, and from The Sopranos inspired a whole wave of media with similar anti-heroes like Breaking Bad, Walter White, for example, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Walter started as an anti-hero, yeah, but ended up being the massive dick by the end of the story. With that show, man, it started with me liking Walter. It ended with me fucking hating him.
Yeah.
Hey,
But good writing.
I sort of liked him again at the end.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, I think the totality of that show is sort of the full spectrum of what a man is capable of. You know, like he's just this milk toast nobody at the beginning, very accomplished, but never really went anywhere with his education, and he's sort of resentful of it. And then he just spirals into this, like, still bitter and prideful. That's his like key flaw throughout the
Yeah,
whole thing.
yeah.
But eventually, he becomes so withered and humbled that eventually he just decides, like, "God, is this my legacy, just being this like drug dealer that everybody hates, and then I'm just gonna die?" And then he decides, like, I'm gonna do something good with what's left of my life,
Yeah.
and take out these guys that
Saved
not only
Jesse.
took all my money, but yeah, well, there seems to be a belief that, I mean, I don't know if this is the case or not, but that he I think it actually is. Like, he went to the compound with the white supremacists thinking that Jesse was partnered with them,
Mm-hmm.
and he was going to kill him as well. But then once he saw Jesse was like shackled and
Yeah.
a prisoner,
Yeah, I
then
think
he's
so.
just like felt sorry for him. And it's just like, fuck, this is not the situation I thought it was. And then he achieves some redemption, I think, which is good, because I think if he died just having done all the bad stuff that he did, then that would be like, well, I guess he's just bad then. But then you have that little sort of spike of redemption at the end, which makes him much more interesting.
And
Yeah.
I think that ties into what you were saying about the sort of archetypal story of Jesus playing into a lot of these, or at least well written tales, I think, in some interesting ways, with Walter's being that, I think, how did you put it? Spike of redemption at the end?
Yeah.
Being that,
Yeah.
like, hey, like, no matter what you've done, that doesn't mean that it's not worth trying to do something good afterwards. Like you can still try to make amends for what you've done and pay for it. And it might not make up for it, but it's still better than just dying evil.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
At
was
least
too.
with
Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, at least with Walter White, that's how you do it, right? That's a very good example of how you do it. And actually, I'm watching, or the wife and I were watching a Better Call Saul, and I'm having the same feeling with Saul nearing the end of the series. I started out liking him and ended up hating him more. Actually, I even hate Walter, or hate is a strong word. Rather, I am annoyed with Walter and Saul because the more I saw they fleshed out Mike Ehrmantraut's backstory, the more I'm not really liking how he died and how Walter took care of him in the series. Yeah, that's how they do it. Bad is turning Mike into a troll. So there you go.
Mhm.
Oh God.
And
Well,
I like that in a show like Breaking Bad, people draw the line at different places where Walter White became like a negative force in their view. You know, like some people draw it right at as soon as like he started cooking meth because he's making poison that people are going to ingest, and that's not good. And he's profiting off of exploiting desperate people. But some people draw the line at him allowing Jane to die at the end of season 2. Because
maybe
because it's so morally kind of reprehensible on its face. I mean, I mean, you could argue that he saved Jesse from further heroin use.
That's the thing. I think his motivation was actually kind of altruistic, even if it was twisted.
Kind of, but
and it's not
is that
what
really
you
his
should
goal?
do for the record, especially saying we're on a sobriety stream here. Like, yeah, if you see someone
Yeah, it's
ODing,
kinda-
call an ambulance for them.
Right.
Is that really? I guess Walter has good intention with Jesse starting out. Then it became too possessive with Jesse to the point that he acknowledges Jesse as being a good cook, but not enough to tell him outright. And he only tells him that just to manipulate him to coming back to helping him cook. That's one of the things with Walter White that's really edging me to not really liking him because he is one manipulative motherfucker. He is.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've got kind of an interesting perspective on the Jesse Walter father son relationship. I think a big part of why he's as like brutal to Jesse as he is, but also seems to want Jesse to get better and excel and to nurture him in a lot of ways, is because his own son's disabled and not the kind of even in when he's trying to teach him how to drive, and he's not really like accepting that the kid that Walt Jr. wants to use both feet to drive, which incidentally enough is how I drive. That is a perfectly acceptable way for a crippled person to drive. But lay into Walt Jr. because of all the other challenges that Walt Jr. has. So all of that bad dad energy that he's had built up in him over like decades at that point, he just is constantly unloading onto Jesse throughout most of the series. But I think ultimately he does care about Jesse, and he does view him as like this protege that he has who he wants to excel and maybe eventually wants to surpass him. But at the same time, that also gives him that like, well, you can't ever let your protege be better than you, so make sure that you're better than him.
He just can't admit it, but he knows. He knows Jesse is there or surpassing him now, or gonna. He knows. He just can't admit. That's the thing about Walter White. Pride is his greatest undoing. It is. It really is. He just can't. Mike Ehrmantraut said the best. We had a good thing coming, but you had to be the better man. You know that line?
Yeah.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's Walter.
Yeah.
Right then and there. That's him. That's basically it. That's why he can't go. He has to be the bigger man.
What you were saying there, Mark, about that relationship, that negative dad energy thing. That's really interesting. I never thought about it that way, and I think that's valid. I think that's I think there is a bit of that going on.
It was actually it was that driving scene that kind of clicked for me, and it was when I was rewatching it during the last season of Better Call Saul, just to kind of catch myself up on the references that might be made, and there was like, oh, I was like, this right here kind of makes so much sense why he's as hard on Jesse as he is, because he's hard on Walt Jr. to a degree that is excessive, like almost the way that he would talk to Jesse, and because of just how what would be the word for it? Powerless Walt Jr. really is to fight back at him on that same level. He feels bad about it. He's like, yeah, I can never lay into this kid like this. Like, he doesn't deserve it. He's dealing with too much other shit.
Right. Yeah, Walt's brain is like, yeah, I can berate him for not being able to do this, but he is just disabled, I guess. So I can't really expect that of him.
He feels bad about it afterwards. Whereas I think Jesse has enough about himself that is flawed and morally dubious in a lot of ways too, that every time he's laying into Jesse with all the times that he's wanted to yell at Walt Jr. in a similar capacity, he feels that Jesse actually deserves it. So it's like it's okay
And
that I do this to Jesse.
Yeah, and I think he sees Jesse as more, he has more, what's the word? Potential. Yeah, he has more potential, and Jesse hasn't reached it yet. So he's really pushing it, but his way of pushing it, it's very not helpful considering what ended up with the way Jesse looked at him by the end of the series. So yeah, I really don't like his approach, but I do get what he's trying to do. Trying to build him up. But the negative reinforcement is really not helping. It just made Jesse hate him by the end of the series, among other things. Also letting Jane die too.
I just like to point out that it's funny in the stream where we're supposed to be talking about heroes, we just did like an hour on.
No. We are not talking about heroes. We're talking about characters. And any kind of character.
I thought we were talking about heroes at the beginning. Were we not?
Well, I was talking about a character that inspired me to keep walking forward. But no, like anything that we enjoy was the main point for this, just because
character in media is the
thing. Yeah, I just have nothing to add to bad because I was watching Stargate SG-1 instead. I really had no.
Part of why we went on this hero route is because I started talking about Jesus and shit.
Well, I started off with Spider-Man, so yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, and I mean, like the Jesus story, which I think, like, ultimately, whether or not the reality of it, I guess, can be contested depending on your belief structure and what. But ultimately, even if you strip away any real world historical connections to Jesus, that story is a powerful one about self-sacrifice for
the pinnacle of virtue. Yeah.
No,
that's true.
And it resonates because it's like, you may not be as good as Jesus, but you could be as good as the guys he hung out with. And so even if, the character itself is something you could never be, it gives you something to aspire to. And then
the stars that you can shoot for, and hopefully you'll land.
Yeah, right.
It makes you hopeful that there are people out there who are capable of doing great things. That there are people who are able to endure worse things than you and still come up on top, or still weather the storm, so to speak. Right?
Yeah.
Well. As for villains, though, it's the opposite. Instead of them weathering the storm, it's them taking over. It's them, no, fuck this. I'm going to be the best. I'm going to control all this. I'm going to make sure it doesn't happen again. Well, for well-written villains, at least.
Or they want to destroy everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Just end up, the world's fucked. Might as well just fuck up everything anyway. So, that logic, that's the great contrast between heroes and villains, at least. But again, for well-written villains, they see themselves as the hero. They see themselves as morally justified. That's why I like in games where you can actually debate the villain and have them change their viewpoint, like this one old CRPG game. I forgot what it is, but you can actually convince the main villain and not have a final fight, and he will just Minecraft himself because you won the debate against him. It's a very old one. It's Arcanum. Something like that. Forgot. But yeah, did they? I know Baldur's Gate has it. Baldur's Gate has it, kind of, with Kendrick Form.
And I was more thinking one of maybe like a Fallout New Vegas quest line or something. I don't know. I feel like it was something I played recently where I ended up just speeching the guy into just killing himself and not having.
For New Vegas, there is. You can actually convince Lanius, I think, to not attack the dam, but there will still be kind of the final fight with the dam.
What were you gonna say, TruePop?
There's something I wanted to bring up. You guys were talking before about, I think it was you, John, where you draw the line with Walter White.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was probably where, I don't know, it was somewhere in the first season where Walt was basically offered a lifeline by some other rich company he was involved with.
It's the two people who screwed him.
Gray
Like,
matter
or,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
or at least as far as Walt's concerned, they like totally just screwed him out of his IP and got rich without him.
And he didn't take it purely because of his ego.
Yeah, he's too
100%.
Pride.
too proud.
No,
here.
no. Does that make him evil?
Yeah.
I say that's a flaw for sure, but I don't know that that's the line where he became evil.
But that's the thing, right?
Because-
Because of its flaw, he was doing morally dubious things. Like literally, he's just I think John said it that he's just abusing people's weakness with their addiction, right? It's still
Yeah.
evil. It's like Hitler, right? He wants to restore the
Well,
German pride. You know what he did. That's his
I
code.
think
right? That's
I
his
think
code.
you could also make the argument that there is going to be meth regardless of whether or not there is a Walter White, and Walter White
And
being able to make
there's
meth
gonna
at the
be meth
quality-
with Hitler too, so there's an overlap there as well.
Yeah, I guess fair enough. But I guess what I was going to say was, but meth made at the quality that Walter was making it would actually be healthier for the people who are addicted to it than like, the
Yeah,
stuff
not
they
laced
were
with
getting.
fentanyl.
One
Well, I
massive
mean,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, well, I mean, I don't know. I guess like the public health argument for Walter White doing what he was doing or not is, I think, more
Because you can-
complex than just
Yeah.
he was making the world worse.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
that is pretty much the exact argument that Gail Bedecker makes when they're talking about it in the Super Lab, right?
Yeah.
It's just like we are giving them a pure, unadulterated product that is just about delivering the maximum high with no contaminants. And if we don't give it to them, they're going to get it somewhere else.
Yeah, and it's
So
going to be
that
dirtier
is their
and
justification.
resulting in
yeah.
more
Yeah.
deaths, more crime because people are like, strung out in a way that's like more desperate for them, so they have to do things like rob a liquor store or mug somebody to pay for it.
It's like
Well-
distilled evil, like distilled evil. We're doing more morally dubious shit, but it's kind of distilled, right? It's not 100% wrong. It's just 50% wrong.
And I think that is the point I was making about I'm not sure that just his decision to do what he's doing is the thing that would make him an evil person. It definitely makes him a bad guy, I'd say. But evil,
I
I'd
think
say
it's
that
more. But I
Jane-
think that came after.
you could-
His idea of that he came after when he did it because his primary motivation is to save up money, right, for his family. Then I think the way he thought about it is, what can I do? Then here's why I should do this. Oh, it's fine if I do this. It's fine. I think that's how he came up with that idea. So it's more of a cope or reason, not really the primary thing that urged him to do it. But it's in the list of why I should do it. Came
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, well, the mask falls at the end of Breaking Bad, right, where he is just completely humbled and he's talking with Skylar,
Yeah.
and he says, "I did it because I liked it. I liked it. I was good at it. It's as simple as that." I mean, a part of his motivation was to like leave money for his family. I do believe that, but a big part of it as well was also just realizing his full potential as a chemist. He felt underaccomplished, and now he was like the best at something.
Yeah, no one
you know?
appreciates
Yeah.
my talent, and now there's an entire industry, granted a black market industry, who appreciates me more than anyone who's ever existed.
All
Yeah,
right.
I
I would like
wanted
to
bring up
move
that
along
just-
Breaking Bad conversation just a little bit because I am
Sorry.
interested in getting to know what character you would pick, Mark, and True Pop.
Mine's probably going to be a pretty easy guess. I'm holding his sword in my little PFP here, but it's Guts from Berserk. I absolutely love that character so much, and
Oh wait,
it's
that's
not
a
just because he's badass, and definitely not because he's like a dark anti-hero, which I think you could maybe argue that he is for, I think, maybe the first arc, not the second arc, funny enough, but the first half of the third arc. But then at that point forward, he's effectively a hero more than he is anything else. And because the reason that that's effective, I think, is because Kentaro Miura does a really good job of developing Guts in a way that makes you understand what his motivations are and why he's doing what he's doing. But he'll also look back on things that happened earlier on in the story in later chapters that recontextualize Guts's actions not only to the reader but to Guts himself. And unlike many comic book hero characters that tend to stay relatively neutral and not develop, I guess, any major motivation changes over the course of their story, right? Like they have like their origin and then that's kind of it. And then you'll have arcs like the Black Suit Spider-Man, but ultimately Spider-Man there's never really a situation where people like, I don't know, I guess the reader thinks that Spider-Man might actually be like an evil demon. Like we're always pretty sure that Peter Parker is a good guy, whereas Guts, I think, has a lot more gray to him at face value. But when you really dig into Guts and how his motivations and the situations around him change, it's much more complex than that. And I think an easy example, one of the ones that I was reading, and I'm doing a reread of the manga right now, actually, pretty recently
now?
was. Sorry.
Is it finished now?
No, but volume 42 came out in English about a month ago, and I'd started a reread, so I was like, okay, I'll get it in sequence at the end of this reread. So. Yeah, the last Kentaro Hero chapters, though, are waiting for me.
Nice.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed in these manga stories is that they can go on forever, right? Is it even near that?
What's funny is Berserk is actually not that long as far as like a chapters or pages standpoint goes. I mean, it is like
it's not like a One Piece filler every single page.
Well, and One Piece isn't actually either. I'm reading One Piece now. The One Piece filler is because I've not watched it extensively, is found more in the anime than it is in the manga. Because apparently there was a mandate that they wanted to do one episode of the anime per chapter of the manga. And I read a chapter of the manga in One Piece in about 3 minutes. Like it's not, they're not that long. Granted, I probably read it faster than it would play out in like a narrative visual format like an anime, but. I've heard that that's one of the things that makes watching the One Piece anime a bit more tedious, and I have manga on my tablet, so I've just been reading One Piece between patients at work. So
because that can be a turn off because then it happened to me when I watched Naruto. If you remember that fucking anime,
my wife has watched all of it. I have watched like an episode or two here and there, and I don't really know much about it other than.
Did she skip the filler arcs? Because that's what I did near the end. The filler arcs just really didn't interest me anymore because there's so goddamn many of them, and none of them have really any real impact to the major story that's going on. So I ended up just skipping them and just read the manga just to see the ending. That's one thing that kind of turns me off with anime, especially longer running ones.
And I think modern anime production, I think it solved that problem, at least apparently to me. And by apparently, I mean that as far as I can see, like as it appears to me, in that they're not trying to pump out a season a year or like constantly have episodes every week. And generally the seasons now are not full blown, like 28 episode anime seasons. A lot of them are like 12 episodes, 13 episodes. And the filler consequence, I think the cause of it is often the anime starting before there's enough manga to support as much anime as they're going to be making. Because you'd think that it would probably be faster to get like non-voice acted, non-animated manga out. But when the manga is being made and drawn by one person and you've got a whole studio cranking out the anime start coming out much quicker. So that actually was not catastrophic, but it really hurt Full Metal Alchemist, the original series. And that's actually why they made Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, which kind of it accelerates the beginning of the series, but then ends with the proper manga ending and like wraps up the story properly instead of going in a totally different direction like the anime people who were making the original Full Metal Alchemist did. But yeah, I guess to tie up what I was saying about Berserk's production, it's not at that many chapters. It's just there's long hiatuses, or there were, because it had been being written since like 1987, I believe, is when they started Berserk. I think
my whole life.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much. I was 3, I guess, when Kentaro Miura started writing it. But he died 2 years ago now, I think. And I streamed the day that he died, so I probably have one that I could look through on my channel.
So basically, he pulled a George R. Martin, Japanese style.
I mean,
I'll get to it eventually. 30 years to write a fucking story.
that differing production pipeline problem is, I think, a major broad issue with adaptation media. Like you guys were saying, it was brought up in chat. Game of Thrones, right? The books were eventually the show sort of took over.
Yep.
And it's just like, we need more material. And then George is just like, I haven't finished my book yet, and he still hasn't.
Game of Thrones, Brotherhood, HBO, make it happen when the books are done.
Yeah, so eventually they got to be like, well, we got to bring in our own writers then, because we need material. Like this train needs to keep going.
But that doesn't mean they need to take a big shit on the table, push their face into that big pile of shit.
Don't worry. We all think they should have written it better if they had to do that.
Yeah, George gave them the outline of what he planned, where the characters would go, the story would go. Just that apparently Dumb and Dumber are just literally Dumb and Dumber. They just know how to copy, and they want to get away from Game of Thrones so they can do their Star Wars trilogy, and where they are now.
Yeah,
adapting another
point too. George was working on Elden Ring and a couple other projects as well too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Because we definitely needed incest in Elden Ring. Thanks, George. And gay incest at that.
Like 200 pages.
Some dark fantasy stories have gay incest. It happens.
yeah, it does.
200 pages. So yeah, that's one thing too. And also the election for the upcoming presidential election there in the U.S. is also causing him distress.
You can cuss all you want, but we're not talking about politics. Fuck that.
I honestly can't legally talk about politics on the internet. Really, I'm in the military, so
I just think I have no interest in it.
I'm not interested in it. I'm fucking done with politics. Okay, my entire private life is but politics. Please, I don't want to go there too. Don't worry about me.
I vote once every 4 years, and that's about it.
All right. So to recap quickly, because the first 15 minutes of the stream, no audio, and then 42 minutes of the stream, no audio from me on my microphone. I picked Peter Parker as my favorite character. Phoenix didn't pick a character. He picked a character type of villain. John, fuck, I don't know. The Breaking Bad conversation erased my memory.
I started talking about Jesus, and then with Link, and then some superheroes.
Yeah. You also
Jesus is the real superhero.
I mean,
bringing up the concept of archetypes too is oddly relevant to a game I just finished as well.
Yeah.
And then villains, in that they are complementary to the heroes that they fight, and they sort of bring out the best or worst in them, in an interesting way.
Yeah, no, that was that I liked a lot, that concept. And Guts is a incredibly tragic character. He gets his name because his Mark, you can explain it better than me.
Okay, so Guts was found by a mercenary band run by a man named Gambino, whose girlfriend, concubine, a prostitute that he just decided to bring with them at some point. We don't really know the nature of Guts's basically stepmom, really. But they come across a tree that has a bunch of bodies hanging from it, like hung from the neck, and they're gutted, so like their abdomens are cut open. One of those bodies was pregnant, and a baby fell out. And there was a baby who happened to live through not only his mother being hung and gutted, but falling out of his mother and hitting the ground and being covered in a big pile of guts. So Gambino, the leader of the mercenary band, just decided to call him Guts because they found him in Guts.
Yeah. So if you ever think you came up with an edgy character, you got nothing on Guts.
Yeah, dude's been suffering since minute 1.
Yeah. So
but one of the things, right? You can pick your edgy character. You can. It's just that we don't use as Snyder. Snyder kind of ruined the idea of edgy characters. Same with Subversion being ruined by Ruin Johnson.
Edginess, I think, is the problem. It's when the edginess is just a veneer. But I mean, take for example, I guess I can use the proper term if we're not worried about like monetization or anything here. But when he's about 8 or 10, Guts is raped by one of the members of Gambino's mercenary band, and Gambino actually kind of sets it up. Like the guy pays him to allow him to abuse Guts, and Guts immediately kills the guy with a crossbow after he's like leaving. So even at 8 years old, he gets revenge on his own rapist. And throughout the rest of the story, that I think it's one of the things that they kind of miss in the anime a little bit in all the anime adaptations, because obviously having a young kid get sexually abused isn't a very easy thing to throw into even an anime. Is Guts doesn't like being touched at all by anybody, and he gets really really violent when people touch him for a good chunk of the story. And because like you have the context of why, it makes it so that once he starts becoming intimate with Casca, who's sort of the love interest that Guts has through the story, it kind of means even more, and they even have. There's a bit of a situation where the first time they have sex, it's difficult for him, and he's kind of in the middle of it. He kind of ends up like choking her, and then like getting angry for some reason, and he doesn't quite understand why. Luckily, Casca's a really tough person, and they kind of like they stop each other, and she's like, hey, like what's going on? And he sort of explains like what happened to him when he was a kid. And it's this thing of you have this ultra strong super warrior dude who's incredibly tough, and he's reacting in a way that's very tough, but because he's like fundamentally broken on this level where it's like his sense of intimacy and love is just all wrong. And I think that that's what is interesting about how they develop him is he understands that and tries to learn to correct it. And he's always trying to get better through most of the series. I think at least past the Black Swordsman arc. Because, I mean, he is throughout the Golden Age arc. There's just kind of a thing that happens, that, without spoiling too much, that kicks off the Black Swordsman arc. And in that area, he's basically like edgy boy Punisher, but with a big sword kind of deal. Like it's just he wants revenge and wants to kill, and that's pretty much it.
Basically, you're trying to say.
I just
trying to
realized,
be
and
like.
then I backed this up properly on the thing that I forgot to end up mentioning, because I was saying that I was doing the reread. There's a scene where he gets back to Godo, who's like the blacksmith that made the Dragon Slayer, which is the big sword, because he's been using it through the whole Black Swordsman arc and a good chunk of the Conviction arc at this point, and it's really dinged up and it needs to be repaired. So he brings it back, and Casca's gone, because Casca was there kind of being kept safe by Rickert, who's one of the members of the Band of the Hawk, Godo, and this little girl. The little girl takes her out for a walk. Casca is kind of mentally handicapped at this point, so she just kind of runs off, and basically Guts kind of blames them for letting Casca get away, but then Godo's just like, hey man, you went off to just get revenge on Griffith, and you left her here. Like, you could have been here protecting her, but like revenge was more important to you. So what are you the hero that protects this woman, or are you the guy that goes and gets revenge on your enemy? And that kind of really makes him think about like, oh, like what are my priorities? What are the things that really means that? Like, do I hate Griffith enough to sacrifice everything to go get revenge on him, or is protecting the woman I love more important? And which one should be at the top of the list of priorities, right?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
there's a nobility in that character and characters like him that you can immediately observe and respect. You know, like somebody who's forged in suffering, who, and as a result, like he's not perfect, and like you said, he realizes he isn't perfect, and he's not only trying to better himself, but also set the world right. And I mean, I don't know a lot about Berserk. I think I've only seen the first episode of the 2000s animated series that they did. But he's a monster slayer, right?
Ones? Like, does it look like a PS3 game?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
It's the modern one. Yeah,
2016. Yeah, okay.
I think there was a 90s version too, wasn't there?
Yeah, the 1997 one's the one to get. It actually just released on Blu-ray. It's quite good. The 2011 to 2013 movie trilogy is the same arc as the 97 one. I recommend watch the 97 first, because it's got more. Well, I'm gonna say.
Mm-hmm.
Had to cough. It's got more detail through most of the story. I would recommend though checking out the movie trilogy afterwards though, because it focuses on a couple things that don't get a lot of time in the series. Most importantly, the hard cliffhanger that the whole anime ends on, because it didn't get renewed for a second season, is like you get a little bit past that, and you kind of see how that arc actually resolves. Whereas if your only concept of Berserk is the '97 anime, you probably just think everybody dies. That's it. But yeah.
That was
Mhm.
that was yeah. I watched that and I was like, what the fuck is this? Because that was back in the day when you had to get you
VHS.
yeah, you had to go to Blockbuster. Actually, no, Blockbuster wouldn't have it. You would have to go. You would have to go to one of the mom and pop rental stores
I was about to say like,
that may or may not have it, and if they did have it, you know. But I watched that and Speed Grapher at the same time. But I would like to. You got about another 10 minutes. And then I got to start cooking breakfast for my kids. So I do want to hear what True Pop Culture, what you have for your, uh, judging by your profile pic.
Avatar.
Yeah, Avatar.
Yeah.
That's what it's called.
It's
I'm
the
gonna
ripoff
guess
of
it is
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man related.
Yeah, it is.
I honestly thought that was an original character.
That's nice of you to think, Doug. That's
I mean, I'm only seeing the Spider-Man eyes now that people mentioned it, but like, I mean, he's all blue. There's hardly any red.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It'll make me feel like a ripoff. Yeah. I guess I have to reveal this. Used AI to make this with a bit of Photoshop. So yeah.
Nice.
I guess those who don't like AI.
Hey, the artist who created Spider-Man.
But yeah,
Spider-Man shit. There you go.
The thing is, yeah, Spider-Man is my favorite fictional character. No doubt about it. I liked him ever since I was a kid. Yeah, since I was like probably 5 back in Poland, and then I came here to England and basically was raised in England. Thing is, like you guys talked about how you read the Spider-Man comics. I never had the comics. I only had like the Raimi films and the '90s show. And as a kid, you never think about deeply about the hero themselves. For me, it was just like, oh, cool, Spider-Man. He's fighting villains. He's dodging Green Goblin blades. Look how cool it is. Look how cinematic it is. I was kind of fascinated by that aspect of it. It was only later throughout high school and stuff like that I realized that there was a lot more to Spider-Man that in his epic look and epic kind of fights. He was kind of like an everyday man, who really tried to balance his life and his superhero life. So that was really fascinating to me. But yeah, Spider-Man. Yeah, obviously. I mean, without movies, without these shows, I think I would have had a lot more harder time in school. I always had this feeling of being like a black sheep in school, and all these
I get
movies,
that.
all these pop culture stuff, let's say, just kept my mind off it, and I really appreciate it for that. But you were also asked who's an inspirational character. I guess what I would call an inspirational character to me anyway. Not necessarily be Spider-Man for me, but someone like Samwise Gamgee from Lord of the Rings. I only recently watched
character.
Yeah. Inspirational character. So Spider-Man is my favorite fictional character. Most inspirational character, I think, would be Samwise Gamgee.
That is a pick. Sam is a super Chad.
Yeah.
Apologies for that.
Best
My
friend
brain
ever.
My brain heard you said Samwise Gandhi, but my brain heard for some reason Gandhi. I was like character.
Samwise Gandhi. There you go.
Wait, Gandhi isn't fictional. He really existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bollywood, if you want to make a Lord of the Rings adaptation, there you go.
There you go.
Like
The thing is,
characters can be interesting to people for all kinds of reasons. Like Spider-Man is my favorite personally because, like your pop was saying, like I had a similar experience in school and I found him really relatable, you know, and he's I like the idea of him doing what he does, and it's just a thankless job, and he does it anyway. But like there's characters like Iron Man who I consider more interesting, even though Spider-Man is my favorite. Like, because I think you have a more complicated character with Iron Man, where like this guy who's like, I'm not just talking about like Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayal of him in the films. I just mean broadly, like across comics and everything. Like, you have this sort of
Oh, old.
brilliant technician engineer who he's a narcissist. He's a womanizer. Like he has a
He's a
bunch of unlikable traits, but he overcomes them because I think eventually he becomes humbled by his own potential to cause damage, and he kind
Yeah.
of realizes like I could be doing so much good with what I'm able to do. And but he still sort of preserves his ego. I think it sort of reinforces his ego to a degree as his story goes on. So like people can, yeah, like I find Iron Man more interesting, but he's not my favorite. Like sometimes characters appeal to people for all different kinds of things. Usually I think the most common one is relatability.
Captain
Yeah.
America was my MCU favorite personally.
nice.
No, if I'm gonna pick an MCU character, yeah, Iron Man would be the most interesting one. Well, granted, I only seen the movies, not really a comic book guy myself. I think same with TruePop. I I have no exposure to them via
Daredevil
comics.
for comics for me.
I became aware of them by the movies, and Iron Man would be. In terms of villains, though, yeah, Thanos would be the one that fascinated me. The rest are just your typical villain archetype.
I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
man.
One I've
Zemo.
heard too. I don't know.
Zemo from Civil War is pretty damn good.
Mm-hmm.
Dude had
think-
no
Yeah.
powers of
Oh,
any kind and
Zemo,
managed
yeah,
to bring the
thank you.
Avengers to their knees.
What's interesting
Yeah,
about
thanks for
Iron Man
reminding me about Zemo. Yeah,
What's
he's a
up?
good one too.
is that Iron Man was created. I can't remember exactly when. Maybe during 70s.
Yeah, 60s
I
or
don't
70s, I believe.
60s or 70s.
I could
It
probably
was
find that
during
out.
the Vietnam War, and there were a lot of hippies protesting against the war. And Stan just looked at that historical event and kind of wanted to challenge himself. And he knew the kind of audience that read his comics back then, because everyone was in the hippie craze. And he thought to himself, how about I make a guy who manufactures weapons for war? How about I make like the most hateable person I can in those times, and kind of make him relatable.
Oh
Kind of
yeah.
manage to make
19
him connect with that audience, and
It,
kind of fix him as a character.
why can't writers today do this exercise where it's like, all right, what is the hardest possible character to write, and can I make people love him? He's rich. He's a womanizer. I mean, they even got him beating women
alcoholic.
comic books. He makes weapons. He's pro-American. He is the antithesis of everything that culture, the hippie culture, would hate, and still manage to make a character that you can relate to and fall in love with because he's flawed.
I think they're trying to do that though, because that's their entire idea of making all these stupid characters. Is they want to have characters that are inclusive, relatable, and all that nonsense to them at least. It's just that they're failing at it. That's the thing. They're trying to, right?
Hmm.
They're trying to. That's why a lot of heroes and villains. It's the opposite nowadays. A lot of heroes are morally ambiguous. A lot of villains are just victims on their own. Because they're trying to, and they're just not good at it. Because their politics are too really getting in the way of it. As much as I don't want to involve politics, but that's basically it. It's their belief system that's really getting in the way of it. For
Yeah.
them to expand and
I
yeah,
think
go ahead. Sorry.
poor writing is absolutely a major issue in modern media, whether it's just simply bad writing or it's too ideological, where like they're letting politics get in the way of it
Yeah,
instead
write
of
what you
actually
know,
getting to
and
the
they
essence
took
of
it too
things.
much. Yeah.
I think
Well,
sometimes it's simple as like desire to be distinct making them just make bizarre choices. Like be like, oh well, we don't want the hero to do what we expect them to do. We want to surprise
Yeah.
them.
You know,
But you can't.
I look at shows like Stargate SG-1. That went for what? Let's say 7 seasons, 22, 23 episodes per season, and none of the writing. There's a few shows that are going to a few episodes that are going to stand out as actually being like super well written or whatever. But all they did was focus on characters, focus on character interactions, and then you can pretty much look throughout a season. Each episode is going to have almost the exact same plot every single time, over and over and over and over and over again. And I don't fucking care. I'll rewatch that whole series. I think I've watched from season 1 to like season 8 like 3 or 4 times all the way through, because it's the characters that I enjoy. The interactions between Teal and MacGyver. God damn it, Jack O'Neill. My brain just did a tism. But just like
3 years.
the interaction between all the characters, and it makes it to where you
the
can
actor.
enjoy it.
It's like, how's he MacGyver? It was Richard Dean Anderson, those.
Yeah, Jack O'Neill, Colonel Jack O'Neill is his name. But yeah,
that's Kurt Russell to me. Damn it,
Kurt Russell. Oh, he played him once.
I know.
You can't.
I've not really.
No,
I'm not an SG-1 viewer. I don't really. Know the show
liked
well.
his performance.
I liked his performance too, but Richard Dean Anderson is Colonel Jack O'Neill, and Kurt Russell played him once.
With Jack O'Neill, there's a stark contrast between him in the movie, start of Stargate, and then towards the end, he kind of turns into, I feel like, too much of a clumsy jokester. While the original, like the early Jack O'Neill, was very competent, very kind of stoic, and with some bits of humor to him, like he had some like occasional funny lines. And by the end, I feel like the show kind of took it too far. He's a real dope, whenever he has like scientific stuff explained to him, he kind of like, could you say that again? Or what's that mumbo jumbo right there that you said?
Yeah.
I feel like they took it too far in that direction.
They did a standardization of him.
Yeah, to an extent they did, but also you could see the actors just like get more and more comfortable with the characters, and they would just be like, look, just fuck it, whatever. But they always let him be super competent with strategy and the military aspect of everything. So, I mean, him not knowing what all the technology stuff is and just being a silly goober, yeah, the character definitely took a hard shift, but I still enjoyed it. Like I like just turning on that show and getting into it. But I would like to say thank you to everybody who came today. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Come on.
And it's a what?
Short man bad.
Short man is bad, but I also have 4 children who are hungry. And other people have streams they got to go to.
The strongest will dine on the 2 weakest.
Well, that's not fair because 2 of them are disabled. It's not a fair fight.
Separate them.
Separate them.
Let person here who probably has the most experience with like combat training. It's not necessarily a deal breaker.
All right,
Also,
that's fair. That's fair. Nice. But no, I appreciate everybody showing up. It's a damn shame that there's a good chunk of this nobody will ever hear because it was really interesting, and whatever. Thanks, guys. I
mean, we can come back for 19 years if you want.
Well, I hope I hope to get myself sorted out better so I could actually do more things on a consistent basis.
God, I was scared you were gonna say I hope to start drinking again this year or something.
Oh.
19 years, you're like, well, I hope to. I was like, oh no.
No, I can do that whenever. It's one day at a time, man. I could wake up tomorrow and be
There you
like, you know
go.
what? Fuck it. I've done it long enough.
Like, I love the idea of hoping to start drinking, like it's
Yeah.
something that happens to you instead of actually just going and getting a
That's why I
drink.
was so confused. I was like, oh no, what road are we going down here at the very end before he's
And,
going to take care of his 4 children? Granted, 2 of whom I condemned to death a minute ago, but you know,
Yeah.
for jokes. I was kidding.
that's Ninja's prime motivator right there. Is when am I gonna get back to drinking? Come on, where is the limit of this sobriety thing?
Yeah. But all right,
Well,
I'll
I
post.
was happy to come on. I really appreciate it. So
Yeah, same.
thank you.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
thanks,
fun.
John. Yeah. John, Mark, Phoenix, TruePopCulture7. I'll put all the links to your channels but the description eventually. Um, but yeah, I assume if you're watching me, you've seen these guys at least somewhere around. And thank you, everyone. I'm gonna go ahead and
No
say
problem.
goodbyes.
I might not get a chance to do this again. All you guys, John, Mark, and True Pop, I've watched your stuff. Really, I'm fangirling right now. I've watched True
Thanks.
Pop's me. I've watched RB and the Chief. I've seen your stuff, Mark, every now and then with the podcast and your streams. I lurk there. So if you haven't seen me in the chat, because I am a lurker, okay, and I'm a fan of you guys. So I might not be able to get this chance again, but thanks for all the hard work, guys. Appreciate your
Uh,
content.
That's cool,
Yeah,
man.
thanks for
Thanks for
watching.
saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
No
cheers.
problem.
All right.
Easy cut.
Anybody have anything they want to promote to the 7 people watching?
Well, I guess I'll be on EFAP in about an hour and a half. So catch me
Yay.
there. I
Spoiler.
think it's a pretty stacked lineup here today. It looks like Jay Longbone, Critical Drinker, Az, and Little Platoon are
Ooh.
going to be
Oh,
with
what's it
us.
gonna be
So
about? Come on, spoiler.
Oh, I
Spoiled
don't
me.
know if I can say. I'm not sure if I can say that.
Well, then
Not
don't.
that's
Yeah.
public knowledge.
It's fine. The surprise will be
Aw.
fine enough. All right.
It is
Goodbye.
an atypical one. I'll
What's
say
up?
that.
It's atypical.
It's an atypical episode. It's not, not a normal one.
Oh, are they gonna do another game show? Is John gonna be on again? John, can you?
No, I'm not on today's one. I was offered, but I said no.
Well, hey,
Might be
that
fun.
makes me feel really special. He took he took the offer to do my show instead of E EFAP.
Wow.
All right.
That's a step up.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just I'm not good on game shows. I fucking suck. So
Oh, there you go. What? Now we're spoiled. It is a game show.
whatever.
Hey,
I don't think it's
I
a big
didn't
deal.
say it. But and then tomorrow we're doing the 1 week delayed episode of Metals Forge where we were talking. Oh, sorry, the Forge. I keep on inserting Metal's name even after we've technically changed it. On Terrifier 3, where we will once again have Miss Slaughter and James Moore, but Swolpool's tapping this one out because we didn't realize that he'd agreed to do our Terrifier episode, and being a person who doesn't like horror at all, which if you
Well-
guys have not seen the Terrifier movies, they're not for people who are not okay with gore. I'll say that
Well,
much.
there's a word that starts with an N and ends with a O that you can say when people offer you things. It's called no.
Necrophilia?
No.
Hey, I mean, he
I mean, that
touched
is
on
a
it.
word.
To be fair, I think his criticism, being a person who doesn't like those kind of movies at all, was like fair. I'd say like he didn't like just be like, oh, this movie sucks because this whole genre sucks, which I think would have been tedious. But no, he had insights, so it was cool. But he doesn't want to come back for 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'll be honest, I didn't watch them because I have no interest in them. But
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, the second 2 movies.
and
there's
True
good
Pop
lore
just
it's stupid.
released a new meme. EFAP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I released a new meme video about situational disability. You were on there, Mark, as well. That was just
Oh, mine's permanent, True Pop.
yeah, that's true. But
Yeah.
yeah, you were discussing like situational disability, like being a
No,
bartender.
that was
where-
sorry, you were talking about on a different show. I was saying it was Hyperbolic Ninja was calling his kids the situational disabilities.
Yes, that was a reference
Oh.
to that whole situation.
Yeah.
My situational disability is the Peruvian illness that X-Ray Girl gave me.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, so is it Latin COVID?
I don't know, but on Wednesday I wanted to die. I am feeling better now.
Oh,
Fuck.
damn.
At least you're good now.
I've never felt myalgia like that. Like you know those aches and pains you get while you have a fever?
Mm-hmm.
So that's called myalgia, and I've never had myalgia like that in my entire life. It felt like I did a full body workout doing heavy lifts on even the small muscles that are incapable of doing like a heavy compound lift. And
God damn.
went harder than I could possibly go, and that was like the day after. And it was just, oh God, it's terrible.
Yeah.
I like
At least you're better.
I was doing web seminars from home for work that day, so and luckily I just moved a computer up to our bedroom, so despite the fact that I was almost unable to physically leave the bed, I kind of didn't have to, and I still went to work. I had to pry myself out to feed the puppies, though.
Okay. You're very
Advantages
brave
of
and
work.
cool. Feeding the dogs, by the way.
Yeah, at this point I'm just like coughing once every 5 minutes or so, and it's not that bad.
Nice.
What I wanted to mention is like I really do appreciate the support on the meme video. I mean, it's just amazing to me that I spend 8 hours writing, editing, doing voiceover for the Joker 2 review video. And I spent what, maybe 5 hours editing this little meme video, and it's already got more likes, more views in an hour than the Joker review that's been up for like a month or so. So it's just spectacular the amount of viewership I get from these meme videos now. Everyone who watches them, I appreciate you guys. Yeah,
they're really good.
People love memes. People love funny stuff, funny stupid shit.
And also, nobody went and watched the Joker, so doing a Joker 2 review, it's like it's an unfortunate one to put effort into.
Go to see it probably walked out halfway through.
I actually had a patient yesterday who was saying like, "Yeah, I'm hoping to get out of here relatively quickly because I want to go see Joker at the base cinema tonight." And I was like, "Dude, don't." I was like, "You don't have to."
You were like, "Hey, if you value your health and if you don't want to see me again, don't see the movie." Okay.
Well, he says that he's expecting it to be bad, but he just has to see it for himself. And I tried to convince him to go see Terrifier 3 instead. It's a better evil clown movie, everybody.
Nice. Yeah. All right. Well, I really do have to go. And once again,